Welcome to Joy in the Journey, where he shows us the pathway of life, and it's in his presence we find his joy. And now your hosts, Shannon Meyer and Joy Ware Miller.
Hey Shannon, how are you doing?
Hey Joy, how's it going? It is feeling like fall out there, and I know whenever you're hearing this, it may not be, but boy, the seasons are changing and I can feel the transition happening. How about you, Joy?
Yeah, I can, and was just looking at some trees the other day, and I thought, eventually they're going to be some orange and some browns happening, and then as soon as we watch that, winter will come, spring will come, summer, and
That winter word, I'm like, "Ugh." The mornings are chilly, and so it's like it's coming, isn't it? But I think life is full of transitions, and there is part of the journey that's always changing. And I think, we don't like change very well. And so there's oftentimes that God calls us to change, to do something bigger, greater, stronger. He calls us to stretch our faith, which is what we're going to talk about today. What does it look like to really look at your faith? And where are you in your faith? Are you complacent? Do you have faith? What is it? What does it mean to have faith? And what does it mean to have like exponential faith? So I think we're going to dig into a really great topic today, Joy. One of my favorite guys in the Bible is Peter. I can relate to Peter a lot because Peter gets in trouble from time to time. And so do I. We're going to talk about that famous story about him walking on water with Jesus. Have you ever had that time, Joy, when the Lord feels like he has said, Joy, come out here into the deep, and you're like, oh Lord, I don't know about that.
yeah, absolutely. And it's sometimes a little bit unnerving, because it's so unknown.
Yes.
And you're not for sure. You and we as people, we want to know for sure things.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't reflect what faith is. Faith is believing that and acting like God's telling the truth, and believing, not seeing. So that's sometimes tough.
Yeah. I remember when God asked me to quit my 20-year career at the school system with, life insurance, health insurance. I could have just coasted and gone through and probably finished out my retirement years. And God says, I want you to jump. And I was like, oh, you want me to jump without a parachute? And he said, yeah, I'm going to be your parachute. I mean, I really felt reckless in it, Joy, because at the time, I had a cancer patient at home. Scott was, we had a lot of $1 million worth of medical bills, and that were paid for through our insurance, life insurance that was, paid. And God is asking me to quit that career, go into full-time ministry, open the Sozo Center with clients. I didn't know if they would even come. I had no guarantee. And Jesus said, come, Shannon. And I've never regretted that. But I'll tell you what, Joy, it was a wrestle. And I think a lot of times I feel like Peter here, like he's scared to death. But I do want to talk to those who are maybe facing that today, or God is asking you to do something, or that you just feel like, man, my faith is so small. I want to do something bigger. So let's talk about that.
Well, and I'm definitely know this is hitting home, because what I hear from you, it's yes, God is calling us to maybe jump, and we are maybe leaving something, but he's also telling us to go into something. When we jump, or we are leaving, it's leaving and entering, so we may be leaving something, but wow, what are we entering and being obedient to, that we don't understand or we don't know, but God does. And so there's kind of a toughness to leave, but an anticipation of what God's doing. So I can't wait. I'm like, this is great.
Well, don't you feel like it's kind of like one leg is on one side of I think of this cavern, and your legs are split, and it starts to, you start to split, and you're like, I got to let go one way or the other. Or it's the simple fact of you're in the middle. You're too far gone out in the middle. It's like walking a tightrope. You're like, I can do this across this canyon. And you go, and then all of a sudden the string starts to move or bounce the rope, and you're like, oh my goodness. And you look back and you're like, oh, I've come too far. And I look forward and I'm like, oh, that's still a long ways away. And things are, maybe the wind is starting to shake. And it's not an easy walk, but we have to keep our eyes on Jesus. So I think we should get into the scripture, Joy. Our scripture is going to be found in Matthew 14 today. Such a familiar passage. You have to know this, that they have just had the feeding of the 5,000. And it's here in verse 22 of Matthew 14 that Jesus, it says immediately. So they've just fed all the men and women and children, which is more like 20,000 people. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. So he's told them, you go, I'm going to dismiss the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Joy, this is super important. I think we miss sometimes the word of God. We've got to come back to this, but let's continue to read. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them. So that's about 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. That's with an exclamation mark. It is I, do not be afraid. Don't be afraid. Verse 28, Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Verse 29. Come, he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand, caught him. You of little faith, he said, why do you doubt? And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. And then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. So this is so familiar, Joy. I know it's one that our friends often know, but let's dig into it. I just want to say this. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get in the boat. Jesus has the plan. He has the plan for us, and all we have to do is follow his instructions. I always say this. Remember what Mary says at the wedding of Canaan, just do whatever he says. She says that to the servants when he asks. And I think we have to do that. Immediately he told them he made them get in the boat. And there's many times we don't want to do what God calls us to do, Joy. But God is now about to, Jesus is going to conduct a miracle. And we often don't know that. And we're scared to death of the circumstances and the storms around us because we're like, what is happening? But Peter is not only experiencing the miracle, Joy, here, he is the miracle. Yeah. And so many times, we're like, oh, I want to see a miracle. I just want to pose a question. What if God wants to make you the miracle? What would it look like if we had the faith to say, yes, Lord, I'm willing? But we also have to see that in verse 24, the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves. That doesn't mean buffet. That was buffeted. That boat was being beat up because the wind was against it.
Wait. So you're saying that even in the midst of a difficult situation, when it's looking rough, that we can trust God, that God's got a plan for our lives. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And you got to know he's sending them out in the nighttime. They're in the middle of the night. I don't know about you, Joy. Have you ever been at the ocean in the night? Man, it's eerie. And I can't imagine being in a boat and the waves coming up. And buffeted doesn't mean a splash. They were being tossed. And so they're in already a predicament. But here's what I want to go back to. And I said, let's put a pin in this. Verse 23, it says, after he dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Now, do you think Jesus didn't know what was about to happen? Jesus went into his own silence and solitude. Many times, Joy, we do not do what this most important passage right here says, is he got alone. He went to the mountainside by himself to be with God, his Father, to pray, to maybe fast. I don't know what he did, but it said he went away he sent other people away. So I think many times we keep going through life and doing, even in the church, we keep doing and doing and doing and doing, and we don't take time to get away and be with the Father, to hear, to listen. Something grand is about to happen. I mean, this is a miracle that makes the Bible. Jesus is in his silence and solitude, his secret place, to be with the Father, to prepare for what is to happen. And I just think we need to take note and not run over our Bible really quick to say, oh yeah, I read that passage, I know that. He went up to a mountainside by himself to pray. Why? Why do you think Jesus needed to do this? I mean, the miracle is about to happen, but he also knows a storm. He's coming into the midst of a storm. He's got to walk on water. Joy, think about this. Now, think logistically. He has sent the disciples way far ahead, and they're rowing, they're working. I'm sure they're further distance if he's been up and he comes to them at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They have a considerable distance ahead of Jesus. Here's the great part about God and how he works in our life. Where we are struggling, where we are rowing, where we're taking all this effort, Jesus can be there in a second. And I believe here is a great point to say, Jesus was doing what was necessary to accelerate that. He had been with the Father. Have you ever seen, Joy, you linger, you struggle, you're rowing in life and you're working, and all of a sudden, immediately, suddenly, Jesus appears. Because he has been working on our behalf the whole time. And what we feel like is taking forever, Jesus accelerates in a moment's time. I just didn't want to pass that up because I think it's really important that we know and follow what Jesus does, to go and be with the Father.
Well, and I love that because that is so important. And sometimes we're so quick and so wanting to get ahead and wanting to, make things happen. We don't want to be still, be silent, and be even quiet to hear from the Lord, and trust that he will answer, and he is working things out, like you said, for our good. Because I love that 3 times you see in this whole story, immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat. Immediately he's there on the water, immediately. And I'm thinking, our immediately and God's immediately could be a little different, but we have to trust his timing with everything that's going on in our lives.
His suddenly is it's not delayed, sped up. It's him. He just shows up and says, hey, I'm here. And so many times, but you have to realize this, they've come off again of another big spiritual victory. They've just taken, feeding the 5,000, they've taken 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish, and they are feeding mass amount of people. We've talked about this recently about Elijah. Be careful on the backside of a huge spiritual victory or win. This is when the enemy attacks hard. Jesus knows this, I believe, and he's like, okay, I need to go be with the Father before I go again. And many times we go from situation to situation, victory. We try to go from victory to victory. And in that, the enemy's like, oh, I'll wear you down, because he's always attacking after that big spiritual win. So Jesus goes to be with the Father and gets still.
We need to pause right there, because sometimes we think, well, what happened? We've seen God move. Maybe we were just a prayer time. We're at church or just in a group, and wow, God, look at what you're doing, and you're just, ready. And then something happens. There might be something, sickness or a situation or finances, and and you're like, wait, we just had this wonderful time. And absolutely, because like you said, the enemy is trying to wear us out, so he's going to come at those times. And those are times, I love that we're talking about it so that we are aware of it, so that we're not so vulnerable in those times. It's like, yeah, okay, we've had this victory. Now be ready, because you know the enemy is not gonna just, let it's a war. So he's not gonna let that be unanswered with something. But God is still greater, and I love that we're talking about, having faith to go ahead and get out of the boat and believe God and know that He is with us. So, okay, so where are we in the story?
So, well, I think another note is to say there were 12 disciples in the boat and only one chose to get out. Now, why does Jesus call Peter? I don't know. But here's one thing, Joy. If I were in that boat, I would not want to be watching. I want to be doing. And so many times I see people sit back and go, oh, I wish, oh, I would have done that. Here's the call, though. Jesus is calling all of us to come. And we're going to get to this. Come out here, come out into the deep, come out into the storm. That you have to remember, you got to know the context of this whole thing. It's in the middle of the night, the scariest part of night. The waves are buffeting them. The wind, it says, is against them. How many of us, Joy, cower back and go, oh, that's too hard? I mean, I remember a woman at one of my conferences. I was just calling women forward to lay it out and to just kind of take on what the enemy has been stealing, just lay it at the cross. And I'll never forget, she said, I didn't want to go up there because I didn't want the storm that was coming after it. And that is the lie of the enemy, to say, oh, if you go and surrender your heart, can you imagine what God's going to ask you to do? Can you imagine? And I think that's where our faith starts to teeter and it gets weak. Because in church, when we're singing in Kumbaya and Lord, make me, save me, help me, all the things that we want that to do. But when the boat starts to rock in our life, oh, we cower back so many times. And so Peter gets the bad rap of taking his eyes off of Jesus. But here's what I want to say. Because it says during the first watch, verse 25, during the first watch of the night, Jesus went out to them walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. Super scary. They were very scared. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus said to them immediately, take courage. It is I, don't be afraid. And then Peter is the one in verse 28 that says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus says, come. Now, Joy, I got to think about this too. They've been with him for 3 years. Would they not have recognized Jesus? They are in a terrifying, terrifying situation. And so many times God will come to us in things that don't necessarily look like him. But he is testing our faith, and he is maybe bidding you to say, come on, I got you. Come on into this. I know there's been things in my life. It just seems so scary, but God is for us. And you were just sharing before we started about Psalm 23, Joy. I'd love for you to share that here at this point, is to say that God is for us. He's with us, the good shepherd. He's calling us. He's leading us. He's probing us. I mean, the shepherd's staff is to push away the wolf, but also to bring his to him. So, what does it look like when we're afraid? Do we do it afraid? Yeah, that's what bravery and courage is. Do it afraid. What was that passage, Joy, that you were talking about?
Well, in Psalm 23, and I've just been loving the song, the Lord is our shepherd, he goes before us.
Yes.
Defender behind us. We don't have to be afraid. So I was just thinking about that wherever we are, that the Lord is our shepherd. But the part that really stuck out was in verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. You can say that too. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So that's the end part. But I love that, because how does that happen? How does surely goodness and mercy follow me? Because I'm dwelling, I'm living, I'm abiding in the house, in God's presence. And I think with what we're talking about, that is that little extra oomph that gets you to get out of the boat. When you're spending time in God's presence and you're like, Lord, I'm going to jump because surely goodness, surely mercy will follow me because I'm dwelling in your presence. So that gives us the unction, I guess,
Yeah.
the courage. Lord, you are with me. You go before me. I'm not alone. You're the good shepherd. I can get out of this boat, right?
Well, I think that's exactly what Peter's saying. Lord, if it's you, tell me to come. He's like, tell me then. And he has walked with Jesus for 3 years. And he may be questioning, like, God, is that you? I've done that. Like, Lord, are you sure this is you? When he asked me, yeah, quit your 20-year career. Yeah, you sure? He's like, yes, Shannon, come jump. Let me catch you. I will catch you. And I think that's exactly what he's saying to Peter. And says, then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, came toward Jesus. And when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, crying out. It's because we take our eyes off Jesus. We have heard this over and over again. And that's where we get in trouble. We sink. Because when we take our eyes off Jesus, we begin to look at the wind, and the wind and waves are crashing all around us, Joy. And that can be sickness. That can be financial. That can be wayward children. What does your wind look like? What has you taking your eyes off of Jesus and going, oh, man, that's a big wave. Oh, man, that's a big storm. Look at that squall that's coming in. Jesus is like, look right here, right here. You'll be okay. But that's where we get in trouble, is when we take our eyes off of him and we start looking at the wind, the waves, the words of other people, get on social media. I know when I've struggled, I go to friends and I'll get on something. I'm looking for what has got my attention. God's like, Shannon, look right here. Get in the word and look right here at me. Turn your worship music on. I know everything's distracting you, but you've got to stay focused on me.
You just said that word, and there is a song out there that says, stay. Just stay in God's presence. But again, Jesus did that before all of the miracle happened.
That's right.
He went away and he was in his Father's presence just to get the peace, get the direction, just to be reminded. And we were even talking earlier about what we think. We have to renew our mind. We have to renew our thoughts from what the world is trying to, place in there, what we see, how we feel, all the different things that touch us. We have to, again, get this word out, renew our minds, because whatever we think, we're going to act on. Whatever we think it first before we say it. So, I didn't mean to say that. Yeah, you kind of did, because it was a thought before you even said it. So we've got to constantly renew our mind, renew our thoughts to line up with what God is saying, so that we have that peace, we have that joy, we have that direction in the midst of the storm. And I love the one word Jesus says, come, right? Just one word, come.
So Joy, let's think about that word. What is Jesus asking? Let's make it real personal to our listeners. Where is Jesus asking you to come to?
Obedience.
Yeah. There's situations in my life. He's like, just come here. Quit fighting it. Quit looking everywhere else and just come right where I'm bidding you to. Come right here. And it doesn't mean, I think this is the key point, doesn't mean the storm's not raging around you. I think we think, well, when everything's good, I'll come. When I can see clear ground, I'll come. I mean, when God asked me to step out in a full-time ministry and quit my job, I didn't have the plan in place in front of me. All I hung on to was Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, the thoughts for you, to prosper you, not to harm you, Shannon, to give you a hope and a future. And remember, that is during captivity. The Israelites are in captivity in Babylon. So even while we're here on this earth and it feels like, I don't I don't know, God. He's saying, come on, I've got you. I want these great things for you. Doesn't mean we're not going to see war. Doesn't mean we're not going to see disease and cancer and sickness and sadness. But I have this great plan for you. And just think of the miracles we are missing because we're like, let's just stay in the comfort of the boat. I feel safer here. I mean, 1 out of 12 got to walk on water. 1.
And, sometimes, people give Peter such a bad rap. It's like, yeah, look at him. He sunk. He got out there and sank in the water. But you have to really realize, like, wait a minute. He was walking for a moment on the water. He got out of the boat. So you think about what were the other 11 thinking? Like,
I missed that. That's what I was saying. He's the one that got out and up.
And I've also heard, that you look at that and it says, "Oh ye of little faith." I've heard also, "Oh ye of a short burst of faith." So it wasn't that he had big or little. He had faith.
Yeah.
He had faith. But when his eyes started looking at the waves, it was a short burst.
Yeah.
So we can't measure like, well, I don't have enough faith. Sure you do. Sure you do. But are your eyes on Jesus? And I think for us to keep our faith being longer instead of a short burst, we got to keep our eyes on him at all times.
Do you think, have you heard it taught? Like I've heard this taught, "Oh, you of little faith," like a scolding. And I think, I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts where he's like, immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. So to me, that's tenderness.
Yeah.
And Jesus is saying, "Oh, Peter, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" I've heard it taught, "Oh, you of little faith, you don't have any faith." I'm like, wait, that's not the Jesus we know. And I read that. I just really read the Bible with full intentionality and deliberateness. I mean, it is immediately Jesus reached out his hand. As soon as you start to sink, Jesus is reaching out his hand for you, even if you don't have the faith. Peter here is kind of blowing it. He's kind of, you doubt it. You're doubting me. And Jesus is like, "Come here, Peter, come here. Come on. I got you. You're okay. Man, I wish you'd have had more faith in this. Why are you doubting?" It's like us with our littles, and we're like, "You see, you're okay." I don't know. I read it different. I used to think, "Oh man, I didn't have the faith enough. So Jesus would have scolded me and been, 'What's your problem? Why didn't you come out here? I'd catch you.'"
Right.
Where now it's, "Oh, come on, Peter. I have this great walk on water for you. And I really wish you would choose it."
And I think just that it is a short burst.
Yeah, I love that.
It wasn't the, like you're saying, it's not the lack of faith or if I could only have more faith. It's that goes back to that obedience, just, are you going to obey me when I say jump or come or I've got you? I guess, what does it mean when we obey? Why can't we obey? And I think it goes back to a trust factor of like, okay, I can jump because Lord, I know you're there.
Yeah.
I can rest because I know you've got me. And so dwelling, again, back to Psalm 23, dwelling in his presence, really, really getting to know his character and his heart and who he is allows you to be like, Lord, the wind is still rough. The waves are happening, but I trust you in the midst of it.
Yeah. And I think let's put that in real perspective, Joy, of not waves, but what does it look like with cancer? What does it look like when your spouse leaves you? Can you trust God in the midst of the fourth watch, the darkest part of the night, when your soul is so weary and tired and afraid? Can we really say when Jesus says, "Come here, I have you"? Would you be willing? Because he's reaching out his hand here. You've got to look at that. Don't miss that. Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. So many times we just won't even reach back for the Lord. We don't even, Jesus is like, come here, I'll take care of you. And we won't even put our hand into his hand to say, okay, I'll take your hand. He's like, let me help you. And we're like, no, I've got it. And remember, that is some of the most arrogant things we can ever say is, I got this, God. Jesus is like, I don't think you have it. Let me take your hand, let me catch you, and let me help you. And so, Joy, I think it's important that we come away with this. Many of us, all of us probably have little faith at times. I'm not a big faith giant. I can't say that my faith has grown over the years, and God has certainly taught me on my walking the water moments to trust him, especially someone maybe new in the faith is like, I don't know if I want to trust him. So much bad happens. Or, I've seen other people give their life to the Lord and it just gets worse. And that's not true. The victory's ours. And we are looking at the end game. We're not looking at the here and now,
Right.
and eternity. And so,
Well, and I also think in those times, like you're saying, when tragedy, tough times, stressful times are happening, the wind is blowing in our lives, and we tend to feel alone or isolated. Could that not be the invitation? God is saying, here we are, it's you and me. That silence and that solitude, that in that moment, he's wanting to give and to increase your capacity to have that faith, to have the trust. But sometimes we start feeling, me included, we start feeling how the enemy makes us want to feel sorry for ourselves. So we just start to have the wrong kind of thinking, as opposed to like, you know what, Lord, the waves are going. I'm feeling a certain way. The family is really in turmoil, but I got to spend this time with you. I've got to come away, just like Jesus did, And I guess that's what I would hope and want our dear friends to hold on to and remember, like, ooh, yeah, this is an opportunity for me to get away in the presence of God, because in his presence, there's that fullness of joy. Surely goodness, mercy shall follow you. You'll be renewed. You'll be strengthened, be still and know that he is God. Allow him to bring you into a place where you wait on him, and he allows you to soar. He gives you that strength. He renews you, so yeah, those are the positive things of being alone, because you can be in God's presence and get strength for that time,
Yeah, I think it's what is so neat about the ending of this story, Joy, is that, and when they climbed into the boat, meaning him and Jesus, Peter and Jesus, the wind died down. So now it's over. The miracle has happened. In verse 33, then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. So yeah, there's a victory. There's a celebration. The wind calms down. And how many times then can we just worship the Lord for what he has done? And I think God gives us opportunity to watch the difficult things, to show himself true, faithful and true of who he is. And if we will just observe and watch and not live in this fear and be a participant in what God is asking of us, man, we're going to hands down worship him every time. I know when God has delivered me from situations that I was afraid of or were not good, or I was in a precarious place, I was like, oh, Lord, I don't know. If you don't rescue me now, I'm going down. Boy, the worship is so sweet after that. Isn't it, Joy? When you see the victory, when you see the miracle happening, when it plays out.
Because I think you realize at those times, wow, God, it is all you. There's nothing that I could have done to do or orchestrate. I just had to be in your presence and allow you to work and do what only you could do.
That's right. So I think this is a great reminder, Joy, of what it is to be maybe the one who gets out of the boat. Let this be a good encouragement for somebody where the rest of the world is saying, oh, that's too scary. I don't know about that. And giving you every reason why not to step out when you know the Lord is calling you. I know someone's listening right now and you're like, I know he's calling me to quit my job. I know he's calling me to go into full-time ministry. I know he's calling me to maybe homeschool my kids. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe he's calling me to leave the area and go do something else. And everybody may not understand it. It may look totally against the odds of what anybody else would choose. But here's the thing. God is a God of exception. And I love this, that he takes the ordinary and makes it extraordinary. They are in a little fishing boat, and God's like, come here, Peter, come here. I want to teach you and show you something that nobody else in this world will ever get to do. And so, Joy, I think there is the point that God is calling many of us to come and do something that nobody else has ever done. But will you miss the moment of the miracle with Jesus because you're afraid of the wind and the waves when he is clearly there with you? He's calming the winds and the waves. They all have to stop at his command. So what is it that we're afraid of? Joy, just imagine if we had the faith of just a mustard seed, it says. Just the faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain. Man, what we could experience with the Lord is unbelievable. I would just encourage those who are listening, do it afraid. Do it afraid. Bravery. My grandson was racing in the National BMX this weekend, and he's had a terrible wreck and broke his collarbone. And we saw him pull back. We saw him pull back this race, and he had broken it before. And I got a hold of him, and I looked down in his little face in his helmet, and I said, buddy, you be brave. I said, do you know what that means? He goes, no, Mimi. I said, you do it afraid. I said, you take those jumps and those hills, and you do it afraid. And you just watched his little face light up because he had been afraid because he had broken his collarbone before. He knows what those hills can do to him if he wrecks. And I said, what you going to do this time, Rush? He goes, I'm going to do it afraid, Mimi. And I just feel like that's what Jesus may be saying is, come on, if you got to do it, just do it afraid. I'm here to catch you. And just like we were at the end of the race for him, every time he crossed that finish line, Jesus is there for us too. Every stinking time that the enemy says, don't do that, power back. Jesus has got his hand out saying, come on, I'm right here. I've got you. So I hope that's some encouragement today, Joy, for someone. Just get out of the boat. Be a number 12. You know, there were 12 people in that boat. Peter was the only one. Him and Jesus, we read in the Bible. I don't read it anywhere else where any two people have ever walked on water. Could you imagine doing something with Jesus that you and him were the only two that have ever done it? Wow. I want that read at my funeral.
That's powerful. And that's so encouraging because sometimes we are afraid and we're like, oh, what do we do? And the enemy stops us right there. But we have to remember, do it afraid.
Do it afraid.
Do it afraid. And that's that obedience, because it's like, I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Be obedient. Do it anyway. If God's calling you, he's saying, come.
That's right.
That's good. That's
all right.
good.
Well, Joy, I think that's a great place to land today. So we'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Before you go, if you'd like to help others be equipped with truth on their journey, share this podcast and leave your comments and review. You can't be pitiful and powerful at the same time. So be powerful.